Welcome back to The Explainer. So today, we're diving into something that's absolutely foundational to the stock market, but honestly, it's completely invisible to most everyday investors. We're going to uncover the hidden mechanics of shareholder voting rights. Think of it as the invisible gavel of the market. Have you ever actually wondered what happens behind the scenes in the financial back office right after you hit buy on your trading app? Well, let's find out. You own the stock, but do you own the decision? Picture this. You've just invested in one of the world's most powerful tech giants. You're checking your portfolio, feeling like a true part owner of a global empire. And hey, technically you are. But here's the million-dollar question for you. When that company decides to, say, merge with a massive rival or elect a brand new CEO, do you actually have a say, or are you just kind of along for the ride? Section 1. Welcome to the sports club. To really wrap our heads around how your voice is actually heard in global finance, it really helps to think of the corporate boardroom like an exclusive, high-end sports club. In this scenario, your shares are basically your membership dues. But, as you probably already know, not all memberships are created equal, right? Ordinary shares, those are the gold members of our club. That means one share typically equals one vote. Preference shares, on the other hand, are more like the social members. They offer some really great financial perks, like dividends, but they give you absolutely zero voting rights. So, if you're holding ordinary shares, you're not just buying a piece of the company's financial future, you're actually buying a literal seat at the table. But here's the catch. Having a seat at the table on paper doesn't always mean the club actually knows who you are. That brings us to Section 2, the street name mystery. So, street name registration. It's a system where legal title resides with a single nominee while thousands of investors share the membership beneficially. See, the illusion of direct ownership is incredibly common. There is a very good chance your actual personal name isn't anywhere on the official corporate club roster. Under this street name system, the legal title of the shares actually belongs to a single nominee while thousands of everyday investors like you and me share that membership beneficially. It's kind of crazy when you think about it. The club only sees one single name on the official member list, while thousands of investors share the membership beneficially. In the U.S. market, that legal title is very often held by a massive nominee entity called Cede Co. They hold the legal title, while you hold the beneficial ownership. You could own a piece of $1 billion empire, but to the actual company holding the vote, you're practically invisible. So how do you stop being invisible? Let's move on to Section 3. Stepping into the spotlight. We're going to look at what happens when a beneficial owner accumulates enough power that the corporate club literally has no choice but to recognize them. 3% and 5%. Now, these aren't just random numbers pulled out of thin air. They are the magic legal thresholds in global markets. Over in the UK, the disclosure line is drawn at 3%, while in the US, Japan, and Singapore, it sits at exactly 5%. The absolute crucial point here is this. Cross this line, and you must disclose your identity to the regulator and the issuer. You can't just hide in the shadows of street name registration anymore. The market demands to know exactly who has accumulated enough voting power to actually influence the empire. It is a massive moment of unmasking for powerful investors. So once you are finally recognized at the table, whether you're a massive, newly unmasked power player or just an everyday beneficial investor, where are those votes actually cast? Well, it mostly comes down to two main arenas. You've got the annual general meeting, or AGM, which handles routine business like electing directors. Then you have the extraordinary general meeting, the EGM. That's where the heavy lifting of corporate democracy really happens, deciding on urgent massive changes like selling off major assets or approving giant corporate mergers. Let's be real. Most of us aren't exactly hopping on a plane to fly across the globe to attend an AGM in person. And that brings us to Section 4, proxies and the withhold power. Proxy voting. It's essentially a designated driver for your vote, a third party like a custodian bank that carries your specific instructions right to the meeting. It really is the ultimate solution if you can't be there physically. The back office machinery basically processes your choices and transports them securely right to the boardroom on your behalf. Now, when you look at a standard ballot, you have your expected options, right? You can vote for or you can vote against. But the withhold vote? That is a brilliant strategic tool. It lets you signal some serious dissatisfaction to the board without throwing down an outright no. It's basically the corporate equivalent of a vote of no confidence. It's a deliberate choice to withhold your support and send a very loud, clear message straight to management. But wait, before you confidently cast that proxy, you really need to be aware of some operational hurdles lurking in the back office. This is Section 5, Hidden Traps, Lending and Blocking. These little traps can completely and accidentally strip you of your hard-earned voting power. The first trap is securities lending, and it's a dangerous one if you aren't paying close attention. Step 1, you lend your shares out to a short seller for a little extra fee income. I mean, that makes total financial sense, right? Who doesn't want extra cash? But step 2, in doing so, the legal title actually transfers to the borrower, which leads to step 3. You completely lose your right to vote. The borrower is now the official member on the register. To get your voice back, step 4, you have to manually recall those shares before the official record date just so you can vote. It's super ironic. Trying to make a few extra bucks can entirely silence your voice in the boardroom. And then there's the second major trap, share blocking. In this scenario, your shares are literally frozen during the vote. You absolutely cannot sell them. In some international jurisdictions, simply taking a snapshot of who owns what on the record date just isn't enough for them. They actually lock your assets in your account for several days until the meeting concludes, just so you can participate. You really have to weigh the risk of having your assets completely frozen in a volatile market against how important it is for you to cast that vote. Look, all of these dry back-office mechanics, the proxies, the thresholds, the record dates, they aren't just bureaucratic red tape. Which brings us to Section 6, the democracy of markets. The whole mission of the back office really boils down to this. Ensure that every instruction is captured, every disclosure is filed, and every member gets their say before the gavel falls. The professionals handling this are essentially the invisible guardians of the corporate ballot box. They're working tirelessly behind the scenes to make sure the massive machinery of global corporate governance stays perfectly accountable and, most importantly, democratic. So that brings us to our final question for you. How will you wield your invisible gavel the next time proxy materials land in your inbox? You know now that those shares represent real, tangible power, and you actually understand the hidden mechanics of how that power is practically exercised. Your vote is your voice in the corporate empire. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer today, and I really hope you never look at your stock portfolio exactly the same way again. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I'll catch you next time.